Hello YouTube, Chris the Frugal Audiophile, back with you here today for another review. Maybe a couple weeks ago you saw that I uploaded a video showing off the Arylic B50 here, and so today I want to review this product for you, and we are going to look at this item to determine whether or not it is that inexpensive HDMI ARC amplifier solution we have all been looking for. So if you like that kind of content, be sure to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up for me. I would really appreciate it. So this video is going to be packed with information today. So it's going to be a little bit longer than most of my reviews. I'd encourage you to get a snack, get yourself a nice drink, sit down and relax as we get into this. Also, you always have the option of skipping through some of the pieces of information with the chapter markings I will leave for you down in the description. All right, so here we go. Let's talk about design and specs of the Arylic B50 integrated amplifier. All right, so you're going to be looking at a black aluminum alloy housing on this one. You have a front master power switch. So then you're going to have multi-channel lights on the front of this to indicate what input you are in, and it kind of shows some of the modes too. There's no actual OLED or LCD screen on this device here. It's just that series of colored LEDs. This one does come with a small plastic remote. There you see the dimensions. Basically you're looking at 7.3 inches by 2.2 by 6.1. So it's not the largest device, but bigger than a lot of Class D amplifiers. And we're looking at about 2 pounds of weight. All right, before we go on, I gotta get a drink. I got some coffee here with me to help me get through this video. All right, let's look at some specs. So first of all, you see the power ratings there at 4 and 8 ohms. At 4 ohms, it's 50 watts by 2 channels. And at 8, it's 30 watts by 2 channels. So not a ton of power, but a decent amount. There's some more specs if you want to look at those. So now we're going to talk about all the inputs that are on this device. And you can see here on the screen me cycling through each one of those inputs. So we have Bluetooth 5.2. You see all the codecs there. Pretty wide variety of codecs. You do have a standard analog RCA input. One interesting thing about this one is on the B50 we have a phono input for moving magnet and moving coil, and that does include a grounding screw. You have an optical input. Then what is unique to the B50 as compared to most inexpensive amplifiers is HDMI ARC, and that does include CEC controls for the most part. Then you have a type A for USB host, and then you have a type C to connect it to your PC. All right, so now let's look at the outputs because it does have some unique features here as well. First of all, of course, you have your left-right speaker outputs, pretty standard there. Then you have a sub-out, which is not found in a lot of devices in this price range. And so the sub-output, it does have a low-pass filter of 250 hertz. So everything below 250 is going to be passed to the sub. And then you also have a Bluetooth output, and this supports 2 simultaneous devices. So essentially what you could do is connect this device to your TV or your Blu-ray player or whatever device you have that you want to play audio from, and then it will stream Bluetooth to up to 2 separate devices, which can either be speakers or headphones. That's a very handy feature to have included in a device, especially one at this price, given all the other features it has. Also, you're going to have tone controls as well as some presets on this, and I did some testing. Flat does reset it back to more of a direct mode, and then you can go in and you can adjust the bass up and down from there. And if you want to go back to your direct mode, you just hit flat. There is a PC app that you can get that allows you to really tailor the EQ to your liking. I didn't test that out. I didn't feel it was something necessary. I didn't really want to mess with it. It's not really that helpful in a lot of ways, but if there's someone that really likes to tinker with your music, it's an option for you there. Finally, we have a cost of $130 on this one plus tax. That's basically what I want to cover for design and specs. Let's look at the assignment for the Arylic B50 amplifier. And that is to be an affordable HDMI ARC amp that is easy to use and sounds good. So let's talk about what it gets right. First of all although the design on this one is not exceptional, I would not say that it is cheap looking or ugly. It's just a basic black metal box. You know, I can't really complain about that. The lights on the front are a bit bright, but a little bit of brake light tape will help fix that in a jiff. However, it does have very high quality construction. All the materials feel like they will be durable and last for quite a while. The only real exception there is the remote, but maybe you're not even going to use that. Stay tuned to find out. Speaking of which, there is a remote control included, which makes accessing all the inputs and EQ features a snap. Okay, so although these things aren't a big deal, they're a little bit annoying. That is, first of all, the materials of the remote, and I have it right here, they're not the best. This is like shiny, cheap plastic, and although the buttons are not tiny, they are on the small side, and they all kind of feel like the same shape and size. So it's a little bit difficult to delineate where some things are. Of course, volume and track control up front here is pretty easy and straightforward, so that's nice. Next, it is great that this amplifier includes both Bluetooth in and out. I paired my phone with the device and was playing audio through it, and although it did not sound horrible, it did, of course, sound like Bluetooth. I also tested out the Bluetooth output feature, and I just connected one device to it because that's all I really have to connect around here. And so I connected up my JBL Bluetooth speaker. You can see a video here above me about that, kind of showing you that process. It was pretty straightforward. I just checked out the manual. It told me how to do it. Now, this is a very handy feature if you need to listen at night and you do not want to disturb your family. I'm really glad to see this included in the B50. Not an option that you see on a lot of Class D amplifiers in this price range. So it's very easy to do this. All you basically do is press the TX pair button and then put your speaker or headphones in pairing mode. In a few seconds, they connect. If you want to disconnect, I found the easiest way to do that was basically to power off your Bluetooth device, and then it will go back to playing through the speakers connected to the B50. And then as soon as you wanted to use that device again, you would power it back on and it would reconnect to the B50. Although I did not use it for a prolonged period of time, I did try this a couple times and it worked just fine. One thing to note is that I did not see in the specs aptX low latency. And when I had my speaker paired with the device, I was watching Six Underground on Netflix, and I did notice a slight bit of lip sync issue. I mean, it was very minuscule, and I'm not the best person to test out something like this since I'm not very visual given my eye problems, and so maybe I'm not the best one. I think it was just a little bit behind the lips, but it wasn't bad. Maybe that's something that would bother you more. I'm not sure. I leave that to your discretion. Next, it does sound decent. To me, it just sounds like your run-of-the-mill Class D amplifier. Nothing horrible, but nothing exceptional. I'd say that the audio is clear and accurate, but it just is not quite as rich as some other amplifiers, and it lacks a little bit in the dynamics. More about that as we go into the next section. Something else this amplifier really gets right is a dedicated sub output. So this is a summed output. It applies that low pass filter of 250 hertz and below. However, when you connect a sub, it does not implement any type of high pass filter into your speakers, so they are still going to play full range. This means you're going to have to do a balancing act there between the frequency response of your speakers and the frequency response dial on your subwoofer. It can be done. It's just going to take a little bit of fiddling. It's not something that's going to happen automatically. However, it's still nice that they have a sub output on this amplifier, and it does have a low pass filter. I really am glad to see this on the amplifier. It actually cleans up my setup right here. Now, if you may have noticed, and you may actually still see my SMSL amp there, I had two SMSL devices up here. I had the SU8 DAC, and then I had the DA8S amplifier. Well, guess what? My DA8S gave up the ghost a couple of weeks ago. Perfect timing, because it was right about the same time that I ordered this amplifier. It's almost like it knew. But that amplifier is no more. However, that was a very messy setup. I think I have shown some pictures of that before. If I find one, I'll put it up here. And it required a lot of cables. I had to connect my sub through the speaker outputs on the back of the DA8S amplifier, and then I had a DAC with XLR outputs, although it was, cool and it sounded nice. It was a lot of wires, and the Arylic B50 here has really simplified that setup, and I'm grateful for that. Oh, are you enjoying the Netflix ads? Sorry about that. It's the best I could do for an image on the TV. Otherwise, you're going to just be getting a lot of reflection from the light in front of me here. I'm so glad for the sub output. I wish it applied a high pass filter to the speakers, but most amplifiers that have sub outputs in this range do not do that anyway. And finally, having HDMI ARC in an amplifier in this price range is a big win in my book. I was able to get the audio to play through ARC as well as ta-da! Control the volume and the mute of the device with one remote. And so now I don't have to go back and forth between remotes like I was doing before with my old setup. It is a dream come true in my opinion. However, this is not a perfect solution, as the one issue I'm having is that the B50 will not power on when my TV powers on. It does power off, but it's not getting that power on command. And I had an email exchange with Arylic about this, and they asked some various questions. I think we were experiencing a little bit of a language barrier, and we never really got anywhere, and eventually they just kind of stopped emailing me about it. So I'm not sure quite what happened there. Not super impressed with the customer service on that one. Hopefully a future firmware update will fix this issue, because the only thing that it's not doing that kind of annoys me is powering on when I power on my TV. However, that's not a big deal, as it's just a one button press of the volume dial here and it fires up with HDMI ARC enabled. So overall, I call HDMI ARC a big win on this device, and that's why I put it in the section for what it gets right. Now, that brings us to what it gets wrong. All right, before we go on to that, I need to get another drink of coffee. I told you it's going to be a long one. All right, so the first thing is that flimsy remote. I know that most devices in this price range do have flimsier remotes, but this one especially feels chintzy to me. I'm not sure why. I'm sure it's okay, and thankfully it does take standard AAA batteries and not a coin battery, which is nice. Nevertheless, a bit of a knock there. Also, another knock on this device is the fact that the sub output does not apply a high pass filter. I didn't take a lot of points off for that one. As I said, most devices in this price range do not do that. It's not a big deal, but it is something worth mentioning. Next, we have sound could be a little bit better. I was watching 21 Jump Street that was just added to Netflix, and although I could definitely hear what was going on and dialogue was coming through clearly, it just lacked some dynamics. The lowest volumes and the highest volumes were a little more shrunken down. It's as if it was applying dynamic volume to kind of keep things a little bit truncated in like a night mode or something like that. And so that was not super impressive to me. When I went into my bedroom to finish watching 21 Jump Street on my system in there, the dynamics really came back. In there I do have a Denon AVR X1300, those Aperion Intimus 4 series speakers, as well as an SVS SB1000 subwoofer. So one of those devices alone cost more than this amplifier, so it should be better. Something else I need to mention, and I've heard others say this, is that HDMI ARC volume is a bit low. When I was watching 6 Underground on Netflix again, I did notice that. I had it turned up to 100, and though I could hear everything just fine, it could use a little bit more volume. Maybe if you use more sensitive speakers, that wouldn't be a bit of an issue. However, when I switched over to Bluetooth, it got much louder using that input. So that's just something to keep in mind. Netflix does tend to be a little bit low on a lot of my devices, I've noticed, but that rang true for a few of the different apps that I use, including Disney Plus and Paramount on my Roku TV here. So it's more of an HDMI ARC issue. Again, hopefully something they can fix with a firmware update. Finally, when testing sound, I connected my iPhone to the TV via AirPlay and was playing some AirPlay music through the B50 here, and it was just fine. It's not something that I would say blew me away, but it worked. It played the music and I could hear it, and I could even enjoy it to a certain extent. However, when I was listening to Hey Ho by the Lumineers, I did notice that vocals sound a little bit unnatural. I can't quite articulate what that means. I'm thinking that they were maybe just a little bit recessed or muffled, so that's something to keep in mind. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't fantastic either. Next, CEC commands are not powering the device on with the TV. And this is kind of frustrating, as most of the other CEC devices I have are doing that, so I'm not sure what's going on there. This is a little bit frustrating since all the other CEC functions are working. It's doing the volume control, it's doing muting, and it's powering off when I power off the TV. It's just that power on that's not working. So having said all this, what is going to be my Frugality grade for the Arylic B50? Well, I am going to give it a very solid B+. And that is because of the functionality and versatility of this device. I mean, just to have all of those inputs alone is very handy, not to mention a subwoofer output, a Bluetooth device output, and of course that HDMI ARC support. There really is no other device like this on the market in this price range. If you know of one, I'd be curious to hear about it in the comments below. To my research, this is the only one that I have found, and having all that, it still sounds pretty good. Of course, the sound is not the greatest, but it's really what I expect from a Class D amplifier in this price range. It would really be nice if CEC worked to power on the device. That is something for which I did take off points on the B50, preventing it from getting an A grade. So now you're probably wondering, so Chris, what are your recommendations for the B50? Are you going to recommend it as an ARC amplifier solution? And yes, I am. If you do not want to spend upwards of $500–600 for some of the cheaper devices that have HDMI ARC in them, it is not a bad choice, and I think it will fit the bill quite nicely for you. So if you want a small amplifier with a sub output to connect to your TV, this also is a great choice. Now also, for those of you who are looking for a device that can connect to your TV and have Bluetooth transmission for your headphones to maybe watch movies and TV at night, and you also sometimes want to play speakers, or maybe you know about 50-50, whatever. You need to use both in your scenario. This is an excellent choice, and about one of the only choices that I know of, especially at $130. You can buy just those little standalone Bluetooth transmitters that connect to the optical output of a TV, but then again, they don't have any type of amplification built into them, and so it's just a little transmitter, and that's a lot cheaper. If that's all you need, then go for it and get that. But if you also want to be able to have CEC control and you want to be able to have speakers and a sub connected to it, well, you're looking at the B50 here from Arylic. However, if you just need that Bluetooth transmission functionality, I will link to a device in the description down below. Now, if you're someone who doesn't really love that Class D sound, and I understand that, I get it, then you might want to look at one of the more expensive amplifiers that I just mentioned. One in particular is from Marantz. It is their NR1600, and I just noticed this amp the other day, and it is a 2-channel amplifier with an HDMI ARC input, and it has a Class AB amplifier. Maybe that would be more to your liking. You can get that on Accessories for Less for $400 when in stock. I will have a link down in the description for that as well. If you're really wanting that complete ARC solution with CEC control, I would look at either the Blue Sound Power Node Edge at around $600 or the SVS Soundbase Pro, which I think is about $800 if I'm not mistaken there. These devices are more expensive, but I imagine they would sound better than the B50 here, as well as have better functionality with CEC control. I've not tested them out. That's just what I know based on the reviews that I've seen and read. I will also link both of those in the description below so you have some options here. There you have it. That's my review of one of the very first inexpensive 2.1 amplifiers with HDMI ARC. What do you think of it? Is it the inexpensive ARC solution we've all been looking for, or do we need to keep waiting? Now, this is a relatively new device, so if you own it, I would love to hear from you and have you weigh in the comments what you think of it. Do you like it, and is it powering on with your TV unlike mine here? If you would like to support my channel in a financial way, you can check out my Patreon as well as super thanks here on YouTube, but don't feel obligated to do anything. That's just if you feel inclined to do so. Okay, you know I gotta say it. Frugal doesn't necessarily mean cheap.